Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Today I'm joined by my co-host Corinn, and we're here for some What We've Been Playing. Corinn, how are you doing today?
Hey, Mackenzie, I'm doing well. How about you?
Doing great. And if you're unfamiliar, Corinn is the super blonde nerd. So give us your catchphrase. Go for it, Corinn.
Hey, nerds, what's up? That's my
Excellent.
catchphrase. Woo! And like a good standard intro. That's that's it.
Gotta have something that's your own. And I think yours is pretty dang catchy. So,
Thanks.
Corinne and I are here talking about board games that we've been playing. These are all the games that we've played in the last couple of weeks, usually 2 weeks. And then we just list all of the unique titles that we played at the end, as well as our favorite games of the week, as well as the ones that weren't so good, our bottoms and our tops. But I'm excited to hear Corinne was talking to me beforehand. She's got a lot of awesome bangers coming up, and I'm so thrilled to hear. So, Corinne, why don't you start us off? What have you been playing?
Oh, okay. Well, let's start with the one that is on the thumbnail, which is a game I had not heard about before called Kemet, Blood and Sand. And it's a really cool. First off, the whole theme is like Egyptian gods and lore and war. So that's super cool, bringing me back to my Yu-Gi-Oh days, which we just talked about a little bit. Levin, all so you play as one of the Egyptian deities, which there are a lot of, but I can't think of all of the names.
You just got to
But
remember that one song from The Prince of Egypt where they just start
yes,
listing off all of
exactly.
the
hmm
Egyptian gods.
I mean, there is. I played Bastet, I think Bastet,
Mhm.
which is like a feline, dark feline goddess. There is Anubis because he is a very trademark deity. I'm trying to think of the other ones, and I
Sobek?
can't. But there's hmm?
Sobek?
Maybe
I'll be honest, I don't know. I've only played this game once or twice.
it's either Sobek or Sakmet because it's one
Mhm.
of those two, and then there's three other deities as well. So you are playing as Egyptian gods, and it is I would say like a tableau slash engine building game as well as land control.
Mhm.
So you have a limited amount of actions that you can take per round, and there are two types of rounds. There's like the daytime, and then there's the nighttime. At the nighttime, you accumulate prayer points, which are the amount of um, I believe that's kind of the engine that allows you to do things, as well as you have your followers, your soldiers that you send out to, of course, take over or conquer specific lands. You want to specifically hold on to temples. There are some temples. As long as you hold on to them by the night phase, you get extra prayer points, as well as you can see there's a miniature that looks like a snake. And that's because there are different awesome, either like kind of deistic animals or creatures, or I guess they're all like supernatural creatures. Giant snakes, sandworms, sphinxes. There's like a holy, not a buffalo, a holy bull, I think. Just a lot of just tying into that Egyptian lore, which is very, very cool. The Sphinx is honestly a little creepy to me. Just the way they're all of the artwork and everything, it's very realistic and it's very good. It's really cool. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think what else. But yeah, you're conquering, you're battling, you are trying to accumulate the more tableau building is that there are so many different types of just these little cards that you can add to your tableau, which gives you special abilities. Some will help you move extra spaces. Some will help you gain extra prayer points at the nighttime. Some of them are the animals that I was just talking about, the specific ones, and you're also building up your pyramids from your specific kingdoms, and the higher tier of your pyramid that you buy, the more powerful cards you get. So there's a lot of balance and, again, engine building slash tableau building, trying to, what are you focusing on? How are you getting it? And you can see there at the bottom, there are the types of victory points that you get. There are two different types of, I think it's victory points. One is like holy or like a god point, and then one is fame point from like winning a battle. And there are two different types of tokens. There's the square tokens, which are the actual permanent victory points. And then there are circle tokens, which are temporary victory points, depending on who is holding certain temples, who is achieving certain objectives. Yeah. So there's a lot of minor details and things in it, but it's all with an Egyptian lore. It was really cool. It was really fun when we played it. I've only played it once, so I'm doing my best.
This is one that I've only played twice actually.
Mhm.
And both times I was pretty impressed with it. As you mentioned
Yeah.
before, I think the standout for this are the different technology tiles. And it's a little bit overwhelming at first because you have
Yes.
these trays that are just full of different options and you have so many different paths to go for. And some are going to be more tried and true paths than others. And so getting into the swing of that and understanding which paths you should definitely go down, it's definitely has a bit of a learning curve to it. I also enjoy the combat system of this game where it's
Mhm.
card driven. You've got a
Mhm.
set amount of cards that each player has, and you see this used in several
Yes.
other games afterwards.
Yes.
This was one of the ones that originated this style.
Oh,
And I
nice.
love how each of them has some dedicated power and ability,
Mhm.
and you know that they exist in your opponent's hand somewhere. So
Right.
trying to predict when they're going to play those, but
Mhm.
also in conjunction with the different technologies, some of those cards
Right.
might be better, which I
Yes.
think is really neat. So I like the technologies. Which technologies did you invest in this game?
So I think we basically all chose the three um like the colors, like the red, white, and blue. So that would have been like attack, defense, and like spiritual or prayer or something. I'm not sure what the white one was. Yeah, it apparently, according to my brother-in-law, they had originally basically given out one like kind of what is it, like a tasting book for like wine, just like one tasting book of what all of the different technologies meant. So then everyone had to like share it and like pass it around. But now they had like several copies of the same basically menu of like, hey, these are what all the technology cards mean. So apparently that was also just like a new flow to help everyone, with the overwhelming amount of options that you do get with each of them. Yeah, so we played with blue, red, and white. We also did have the black one and the green one,
Mhm.
which I think the black is dark magic or like necromancy or something, and then green is I don't know what green was.
Green is Cthulhu, right? Green
Yeah,
is
I think that might be what it is. Yeah, which is really fun and like a hilarious like let's add a different kind of like supernatural lore to Egypt.
I think that's amazing. And
Yeah.
I think that this also did a really good job of incorporating the tech trees leading into monsters, and I think that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
This game draws a lot of comparisons to me to something like Blood Rage, which is
Okay.
another similar game of area control, but
Yeah.
you're also trying to get yourself upgrades by building up this tableau of cards on your
Mhm.
player boards. And the monster system, I think, is very cool. Now, the big difference between those two games is in Kemet, all of the options are present from turn one. They're there. You
Mm,
can pick them. You can go down certain paths. Whereas in something like Blood Rage, you start off picking which upgrades you're doing in a draft
okay.
style. So the
Okay.
tension is a little bit more terrifying as you're potentially losing out on options every time
Sure.
you pass. So I think
Sure.
there's some great options in both. And I think that you're going to like Kemet if you enjoy having them all there at the beginning.
Sure. Yeah. It definitely might make turns a little bit longer, but again, you have so many options. It's not like you're bored. It's like, okay, what tech cards am I going to try to go for and all that stuff. So yeah, it's a really cool game. I definitely will want to play it again for sure.
When you go into it the next time, what sort of things will you come into the game with now that you've played it once? What things are you going to try to remember or try to do?
Mm. That's a good question. The definitely, building your pyramids is pretty important because the higher tier level that you have, the more powerful cards you can get, and
Mhm.
there are a limited number of cards. There aren't four per piece, basically. Once one tile is taken, that might be the only one. There might be a couple of copies, but that's only two. So it worked out pretty well for me and my sister. I think we both took one of the similar ones where I think we both got extra movement or something, but my brother-in-law and my husband got the one where they got like extra prayer points, I think, in the night phase, which was really clutch as well. So there's definitely going to be more, I think, trying to be cognitive of which ones there are only one copy of, because I didn't know that some of them only had one copy. As well as, oh gosh, what was the thing that my husband did something where he just like stacked up temporary points. And as
Mhm.
long as you pass that threshold and your next turn you start with all those points, you win the game. So gosh, what did he do? I think he just took over one of the higher temples, basically, that gets you a lot of points. But yeah, no, there's a lot to still still learn, and hopefully do better on for that game.
Gotcha. Well, best of luck to your next game. And if any of you out there in the chat love Kemet, please let us know. What
Yes.
strategies do you play when you take on the challenge
Mm.
of Kemet, Blood, and Sand?
Or Blood Rage, was that the one you were talking about?
Yeah, Blood Rage.
Yeah. Another blood game.
That's one of my favorite games ever. I think that's my
Yeah.
favorite multiplayer game, actually.
Oh, nice.
I love Blood Rage.
Sweet.
But this brings us to the next game here. And this is my first entry into sort of I would say a Halloween style of game. And it's the one that's featured on the thumbnail as well. This is going to be Batman Everybody Lies. There's a lot of comic books that are set around Halloween. The most recent The Batman movie had the beginning was during Halloween night. And I think that there's a lot of Halloween imagery. You have the Joker, who's obviously very inspired by these creepy tales, and then his entire rogues gallery is also just terrifying. And luckily, I had the chance to play the entire campaign of Batman Everybody Lies. Now, this is a detective game, which means it's a crime solving game, which actually works perfectly in the Batman universe. So I was a little apprehensive when starting this game at first, because the original retheme of the game was for Dune, and Dune House Secrets had a detective themed game that was based off of the detective series. And I thought that game was pretty awful. I rated it about a 2. I don't think I'll ever touch it again. It was
Mm.
awful. We didn't even make it past the second mission. It was pretty. It was not done well at all. It was really frustrating. So I'm very apprehensive, and it actually stopped this one from getting played until very recently. But
Mm.
as soon as we played the first mission, loved it. This is such a great game. It's obviously not as rated as highly as I rate the standard detective. It's a 7 out of 10. There are some cons to it, which I'll get into here, but I think that for a Batman themed detective game, this does it very well. So Batman Everybody Lies, it features a campaign story of 4 connected missions with a prologue, and then after your prologue, you're going to be moving on to these larger cases. I'm not going to get into any spoilers here or anything like that, but I want to talk about some of the gameplay features that make it different than the original detective. So the first thing is you have what's called a scene deck, and I think this is so much fun. You actually are going to be able to see what is happening in the world. It's not just your imagination that's going to be taking you places, which I do think is fun. I think it's great to be able to use your imagination,
Mhm.
go to the different places in that theater of the mind. But there are actually decks in this game called scene decks. And as I mentioned before, I'm not going to show any spoilers here, but in the scene deck, you're going to have comic book images of whatever you're interacting with.
Yeah.
Normally, you pick up a single card, and that card will tell you what you're experiencing, what you're doing. And some of those cards will say, grab scene card number 5. And you'll pull that out, and it shows you in comic book style what is happening in the situation. I love this. It's so much fun. Sometimes you'll go and you'll see a specific interaction between characters. You'll see the crime scene. As I said before, no spoilers. It's definitely like one of your first options on the leads. So don't worry. But you'll get to see this in person. And it's so much fun to have that paired with your notes, paired with the different leads that you can follow in order to get more information. I love that. The other thing that's really cool about this version of the game is you actually are going to embody different characters. And so you're going to choose at the very start which of these characters you want to be. You can be Harvey Bullock, you can be Selena Kyle, you can be I forget the other guy. There's another reporter, or you can be Vicky Vale. So I played as Vicky Vale, and I played this with my wife Ariana, and she played as Selena Kyle's Catwoman.
Yeah.
And when you start the mission, you get a personal goal. How cool is that? In addition to the initial story and the leads, you're also going to get your own piece of paper that you'll look into that you're going to be secretly doing while the other players are playing as well. So this was so awesome. I was looking out for specific evidence towards my personal goal while also trying to solve the case.
That's
And
really cool.
it was awesome. So it had some pros and cons, whereas Ariana had things that were very thematic for Catwoman. It was so cool. I think hers was way more interesting than mine. Vicky Vale, unfortunately, had a lot of goals that were almost the exact same goal as the main goal of the mission. So it was a little unfortunate that mine wasn't as specialized because I'm a reporter. So
Yeah.
naturally, my stuff is going to fall in line with the other things. But Ariana's goals were very different than a standard reporter, and I thought that was really awesome.
That's
So
really
some cool stuff there. If you were to be one of those characters, who would you pick?
Ooh. Honestly, my first thought was Selena Kyle because she's awesome. I love her. I love Catwoman.
There's the guy, Warren Spacey.
Spacey.
There he is.
Nice. Yeah, I was like, who else would it be? I'm surprised, like, you couldn't be Commissioner Gordon, but maybe he's too, like, OP for this game. I don't know.
Commissioner Gordon is the one who's kind of talking to your team.
Okay.
He's leading you all.
That makes sense.
Batman does make appearances in the game. There's a location that you can visit that is a Batman location,
That's cool.
but you do not get to control him, which I think makes sense.
Yeah.
You are the detectives. You are playing and trying to solve that case.
Honestly,
and I think
it makes it more immersive, I feel like, because if you're not controlling Batman, it becomes more immersive because then you're like, when did we get to see Batman? Like, do we get to see him? You know, like that kind of thing.
I agree fully. It was it's so cool. And the missions themselves, that's probably my last pro I'm going to talk about here, is the missions are detective cases. I love that. You have the Batman universe to think about in the back of your head and how that could potentially apply, but they are at its heart a detective case. And I think it's a very strong piece of this game. Now I'm going to move on to some of the cons that I had of the game. The first con has to do with the locations and the player abilities. So the way that the board works here is you have locations that you visit. In the original detective game, it was one of my favorite things where you would move to a location and it would take you extra time in your day to be able to move from location to location. You could even give yourself stress to work longer hours, and that may negatively impact you. And you had to figure out when was the best time to move locations and if it was worth that extra time. In this one, it's not the case. You pick a spot, you move this blimp token, you pay a cost if there is one on the location, and then you pay one time. And that's pretty much it for all the locations. And even if you stay at the same location, it's the same amount of time. So there's no puzzle here or stress or pressure. It's just an efficiency puzzle more than anything. And that also leads to the cost of the activations. And most of these locations will be free to go to, but some of them will be requiring a specific token. And to get those tokens, you spend evidence, and most cards you visit give you evidence. And so the game presents this resource management puzzle, but it's really not a resource management puzzle. We never found ourselves with not enough evidence to go somewhere that we needed to follow. And that was in all 4 missions, as well as the locations. It's tied to the characters. So each character has a special ability when you pick them. And the special abilities of the characters will say you can spend an evidence to get a specific token. Unfortunately, that's the ability of all of the characters. They all have the same abilities. They say, oh, if you're Vicky Vale, spend an evidence to get a Vicky Vale token. If you're Selena Kyle, spend a evidence to get a Selena Kyle token. And then you can spend 2 of these things in order to get a specific token that lets you go to location. And they all kind of do that. It's really unfortunate because they're just not that exciting of abilities, which I found a little frustrating because even though we had those personal goals that made things personal, there was no really difference between us effect-wise in the actual game. So that was a little frustrating. There is something cool that they do with the locations where if you do visit a location once, it flips over and the cost increases. And that's supposed to mimic that you're annoying them and they don't really want to talk to you. So it costs you more time to go and talk to those people.
I love that.
Yeah, I think it was a good concept, but I don't think it particularly worked super well. And yeah, those are my negatives here. But overall, it was a great experience. And I'll spoil this later, but this is in my top experiences from these last 2 weeks. I had a great time with this, and it was so good. I was really impressed, and I'm hoping they make more of these Batman themed games because I just had a great time with it. Have you seen this one? Have you played any detective style games, Corinn?
I've just played the more what is it called? Like the one and done murder mysteries where you get like either a briefcase, or I really want to do like those hunter killer ones, but not like a actual campaign detective board game. I haven't done one of those yet, which I definitely want to because I love murder mysteries. So, and this is perfect. This is like spot on theme of Batman, like being able to do that. I'm surprised that it hasn't come out yet, but until now, but different mechanics develop and all that stuff. It's super cool.
I think it was definitely a good move. They waited until the release of The Batman in order to put this one out. So it tied in perfectly with that movie release, which makes sense. You're basically getting free marketing for your game.
Sure. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So this as you mentioned before, I think the theming is spot on with this game. And that brings me to a question that I want to put out there to you and the people watching is what theming would you like to see in a game like this? What theming would you like to see on a game system you love? In this in particular, I love the detective system. So seeing Batman placed on it and seeing it work so well, I am thrilled. So Corinn, what's a game that you were pretty pleased with to see rethemed or something you'd like to see themed?
Oh no. I was gonna say because I feel like they also have released a bunch of like Sherlock versions of like detective games for sure because Sherlock. Um oh man, good theming.
Don't
Oh,
feel pressured. It's okay.
have you played I can remember the name. Call to Adventure?
I have played Call to Adventure, yes.
Yeah, so they released one with Brandon Sanderson's version, which I don't know if you've read his stuff, but that's just like it works very well because it's already a big storytelling, it's already a story, but then it's also a very large universe that you can incorporate characters and worlds and things into. So I think that worked out really well. Yeah, to have the Stormlight archive, which is really really cool. Specifically, this is like one of his main very popular series. He has like a huge. He basically has like a multiverse where it's called the Cosmere, and it all connects. He has a lot of different stories that all connect. Spoiler alerts, but you don't really know that until you read all of the specific books, and then it's like, wait a minute, these things connect. So it's very cool. But yeah, I thought this was a really awesome, a very cool choice to incorporate. It's a very niche incorporation, but it's really cool.
Stormlight Archives is one that I have not read. The only Brandon Sanderson properties I've read have actually been The Reckoners, and they made a board game about that, which is awesome. It's a
Yeah,
good
yeah, yeah,
game. I
yeah.
really like that one. Yeah, but have not tried the Stormlight Archive Call to Adventure.
They are big boys. They are thick. So if you love high fantasy, um, I love Brandon Sanderson just because getting off a tangent for a second. He's just really good at character writing, and that's a really big thing for me is just characters. So I think he does a really good job. I've honestly only read the first Stormlight, which is the Way of Kings, but I'm continually reading into it. But I'm very excited for the rest of it. Mistborn's also really good. That's a good one to dive into.
Awesome. So if
Yeah.
you have any themes that you love that are on games that are just kind of redos or reskins of games that you love, please let us know down in the comments. Or if there's a theme that you need to be on a different game, I'd love to hear that as well. Corinne, let's go ahead and talk about your next game. What else have you been playing?
Well, I'm thinking of let's do wait, where to go? Seven Wonders. Seven Wonders classic. It was as it says on the box, like the most rewarded game in the world. Something like that. We got the second edition. We just got it for my husband's birthday. And oh man, that game is so good. It's a uh, drafting slash tableau building game. Super quick to pick up. Again, the second edition, Mackenzie and I were talking about this. The back of the second edition cards are just so beautiful and shiny and metallic, and it's just lovely. Yeah, Seven Wonders is a really quick to pick up drafting game. You go around, you choose, you need materials to build your wonders. There are infinite ways to get points. There are guilds. There is science. There is um, not trading, well, kind of trading in the mechanics of you can trade with other your neighbor players to get resources for cheaper, as well as just your like blue victory points. Military, you focus in on military, you will win. You get certain points after each round. There's only 3 rounds, so the higher military you have, the most military points you have. You win those combats at the end of each round, and you get points for that. And you get minus points if you don't win your combat between your fellow neighbors. So yeah, there's a lot of elements to it, but it's not overwhelming. It's really quick to pick up. I think the system is great. I think the artwork is really nice, and the gameplay is super fun, and it's super quick. It's not a very long game. Like I said, it's quick to pick up, and then you can play rounds and rounds and rounds of it. So that's what we usually wind up doing.
Seven Wonders is one of those games that I'll play a bunch of. I think it's
Hmm.
spectacular. One of the coolest things about Seven Wonders is the simultaneous play. The fact that you're
Yes.
always curious as to what's potentially going to be passed back to you. You're
Hmm.
always risking losing something by ensuring something else. I just like the versatility of the cards. The fact that you
Yes.
can purposefully get rid of a card because you know somebody else might benefit from it to get cash
Hmm.
or even build your wonder. And once it's under your wonder, it's gone forever. And I love that decision.
Yes. And it's also important to keep an eye on what your neighbors are doing because there are certain victory point cards that are contingent on your neighbors. So depending on if your neighbors have a bunch of brown cards, you can get a lot of victory points from them. So it's really, just like you were saying, fun and interactive and simultaneous.
Seven Wonders is so good. What's your favorite route to play when you do this? Do you go heavy in one specific strategy, or what do
Ooh,
you normally do when you play?
military was really, really helping me out. Military was good, even though me and my brother-in-law were going heavy on the military, but we both did not win either time we played. So we were like, military isn't the key thing to win. I definitely also went heavy on the science track. So tried to do that, and both times that we played, I got the science guild, which was just perfect. So I was just able to keep that with me and get more points for that. So that was really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
One thing that I found really interesting. So this actually featured in the World Series of Board Games. Seven Wonders did
Mm.
as one of the competitions, and there was this great Reddit post about somebody who had logged over 100 plays of it and had taken some data on it. And I thought it was so funny because he essentially mathematically proved, even though it's a smaller sample size, that the yellow cards in this game are flat out bad. Like your win rate goes down every time you draft a
Yeah.
yellow card. And I think that is hilarious because that's what it feels like when you play. You're like, oh, this could be good. It's not. Don't do it. It's a trap. Don't take the yellow cards.
Yep. Yeah, it's always a bummer when like the last card that you get from drafting is the yellow card. And you're just like, cool. Okay. Great.
That's so funny to me.
Yeah.
Oh, that cracks me up. Now, have you played any of the expansions for Seven Wonders?
We just also with the birthday gift. I did not get it. This is from my sister and my brother-in-law. We got the leaders expansion pack.
Ooh,
We
a good
have
one.
not played with it yet, but we're very excited to incorporate those in there and just see what if they. I've heard leaders and oh no, what was the other one? There's like two really good expansions. I don't know if
Cities?
there's more than two. Yeah, cities.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's more than two expansions,
So
but
there
those
are
two.
actually a lot of expansions for
Okay.
Seven Wonders. One was one was not good enough to where in the second edition they didn't even reprint it. So there was
Oh.
one that was called Babel that was just
Okay.
not well loved and didn't even get the second edition printing. But one that I did recently try is Seven Wonders Armada, and I was
Oh.
pretty impressed with that. What it
Okay.
does is it gives you every time you are going to play a card, you have the
Mhm.
additional option to increase on this boat track essentially, and these
Ooh.
boats are tied to the different colors. So if you play a green card, you move on the green track, and
That's
they give you
cool.
additional bonuses. And I thought this was actually really cool because you're trying to juggle your opportunities on both tracks at the same time and ensuring you have enough money to do both.
Yeah.
And each track is going to give you different options. And there's also sea warfare, exploration cars that you get with your science resources. I was actually really impressed with it so much that I was like, wow, this is a really smart system. It didn't clutter the game up. It
Yeah.
still fed into the simultaneous play. It's not as easy to just throw in there like cities or leaders are.
Sure.
But I do think this gives you some really interesting options. So I was really impressed with
Cool.
Armada. I
Yeah. Well,
highly
now I'm gonna
recommend it.
add it to our Christmas list.
I
Because
recommend it. I had a good time with this one.
now we have Seven Wonders. Ha ha ha.
I'm so happy for you. I think that Seven
Thank
Wonders
you.
is amazing, and I hope that you get an opportunity to play it as
All
often as
those there's a
possible.
couple little ships.
It's cool. It's
That's really
neat.
cool.
And
Yeah, that's
each of
awesome.
them has their own currency, and based on the board that you get, it's also
Ooh,
different. So you're going to have your own asymmetrical tracks as well, which will
that-
change up the game drastically as well from that
I
first.
love that.
It's good stuff. I liked it.
So everybody gets one track.
Mhm.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay. I was thinking it was one like communal, like here's your boat.
Hmm.
But it's ever okay, that's cool.
Yeah, everybody gets their own track of ships to manage, and every time
Yeah.
you play a card, your personal track is going to move up, and then you can pay an additional cost, whether in a resource or currency or something,
Mhm.
and get an additional benefit. Maybe with this, yellow cards might not be as bad because you get to force other players to lose cash. Who knows? We'll wait for another Reddit post to figure that out.
Yes.
Anything else to add on Seven Wonders?
Oh, you got to play it at least once. I'll definitely let you know. I'm sure we'll be playing it with leaders. Leaders?
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Okay, awesome. So that brings us to my next game, and this is one that I have a weird relationship with. It's such a strange game. It's a Euro through and through with a very
okay.
cool theme. It is called Vindication. So Vindication is a game where you play as a scumbag who's trying to vindicate themselves. They're trying to do all of these great things. I think you're more trying to redeem yourself in the eyes of some superior being, but you're going to be traveling around an island and trying to meet companions. You're also going to be trying to complete quests. You have like your own personal quests that you'll be going on, and you also are going to obtain a variety of colored cards. And these cards, you simply trade in cubes for cards. And so it features a color combining mechanism where you're going to have to make a green resource. You need to combine a yellow and a blue
Blue.
resource.
Ooh,
So, and so there's like this ring around the track that has the different color combinations.
fun.
It is fun. I think that the game is, it can definitely fall into where there are some cards that are just clearly stronger than others. And so it can
Mm-mm.
feel real bad when on even on the first draw of the game, you can get a single card that's just clearly better than everybody else's card, and you just run away with it. And you're like, sweet, easiest game of my life. And that kind of sucks sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think that's the biggest weakness of this game is there's such a fluctuation between the power levels of cards. But I do think it is a fun time. It's a very chill game. You move around to a place, you interact with the location, and you activate one of the people you control each turn. That can lead to a little bit of AP as well, though, because you're going to be accumulating all these cards and getting lots of options. But
Mhm.
overall, I think the production is lovely. I think that the board is really cool. You're going to be managing your different cubes and trying to not only produce resources, but also put them in appropriate spots because they are limited. You'll have what's called your influence that's in front of you,
Mm.
and that's going to be scattered around the board and also on your own pieces and characters. And so you're picking as to where you want to be leading all of those resources while also trying to make the most out of what you actually have. It's a very strange concept, but it's cool. I think it makes a lot of sense when you're actually playing it, and it leads to some really cool moments.
Mm.
Have you heard of this game? Has this been one that you've played at all?
I have not heard of this game. I feel like I would have in the sense of just like the colors,
Mhm.
because that's a really cool element to it, and my artistic eye is very pleased. Monsters, apparently.
Yeah, that's one thing that I definitely want to talk about here
Okay.
are the expansions to this game. This game
Okay.
features so many expansions,
Oh
and I'll be
man.
honest with you, almost all of them are awful. They're pretty bad. They either make current strategies way too powerful. If you
Mm.
play with, there's like this triangle one that you can play with, where it just allows you, if you drew a good card, to just run away with it even more. And it's a
Oh
little
man.
frustrating. It makes the game a lot more easy to make these broken combos. You have some that just clutter up the game and make it so that you have to go down a specific path.
Mhm.
And a lot of things that are, if you include them, you must do them, and they're not particularly interesting. Some of the cool things they do add, though, are new tiles. So you can actually, if you see the board here, there's all of these hexagonal tiles on the board,
Yeah.
and you actually are going to be pulling them from a bag to revealing where they are. And that's
Hmm.
pretty fun when you're able to add these expansion tiles. Some of the tiles are definitely cooler than others. There's one where you can get pets, and those will go onto your cards, which is super fun.
Oh.
You have different options of manipulating your different resources, which is cool. And some of the tiles, though, unfortunately, also fall into that. Oh, if this exists in the game, you got to find it and use it. Or they're tiles that are just so bad that you just blatantly ignore them. They're not worth even looking at.
Gotcha.
So it's so weird because this game has so many expansions, and I don't think I really want to play with any of them, which is kind of sad.
Oh.
That did change though, because that's what I want to talk about in particular is a new expansion for the game. This is called Vindication, the Odyssey module. So Vindication came out with this huge like Odyssey box a little bit ago, and
Mhm.
the box came with a playmat, like a patch, a sticker, as well as a the Odyssey module and a couple of other little cards. But the Odyssey module itself is a questing system. And I think it's really smart. And it actually solves some of my problems with having overpowered companions during the early parts of the game. Because what you're going to do with this module is you are going to send those companions out on quests. And so that means you don't have
Ah,
access to them because they're going out and questing. But you definitely want to
gotcha.
do this because questing is a great way to get resources, these really powerful cards, for cheap. And you're kind of circumventing the normal ways that you would go and get these cards, but
Mhm.
you're giving up your immediate powers. I really like like this system. You have this large strip that's going to go on the side of the board, and you'll send your companion, your square card, to the bottom of the strip. And then as soon as you send them, based on the amount of cubes that you put on the top, you are going to be able to look through a deck of cards, look through, have lots of options. You pick one and put it on the top. So everybody knows what you're going, you put it face down. So nobody knows what you're questing for right away. So you have your companion on the bottom and the card that you're questing for on the top. At
Gotcha.
the start of each of your turns, you remove one of the cubes from the quest that you're on, and once they're all gone, you get your companion back plus the quest card on top here.
Cool.
This is such a simple system. It's so easy to use. You put your characters out there, and the other players can actually interact with this by putting their cubes onto the track to make your quest take longer. They can meddle with you. And they also get to look at the cards. You reveal it and show everybody what you're actually
frustrating. But that's great. That's a good check.
Luckily, it can only happen once, so it does prevent people from completely shutting you out, which is really nice. But the fact that you're tying up your companions is super important. You are losing access to the resources that they can produce, the effects that they can produce. And because it's so powerful early game, it's going to stop those strategies where you just spam your amazing companion over and over again. Or you're going to need to spend time getting a companion to go send on quests. But if you're doing that, you're not doing the other portions of the game because you're not guaranteed to get those companions early. This is such a smart design. And the other thing is, if your character doesn't come back from its quest, then you also are going to end up losing out on that character and its points in general at the end of the game. So you're pushing and pulling on when it's safe to put a character on a quest. I thought this was really smart, and I think it's the best expansion, I think, for Vindication. It's so simple to use, but it makes it so that you can get a diversification of cards. And say that you are making a lot of purple that game, and you go and send your characters on quest to go get green cards or orange cards. Monsters give you endgame scoring. The traits give you special powers. Or the pets, as some of these will have shorter spawn times, essentially.
Yeah.
And you can even have multiple of your companions going out and getting these cards for you. Such a cool concept. I really like this one.
Yeah.
So if you're on the lookout for a cool expansion that actually is great for Vindication, I recommend the Odyssey box. In particular, it comes with the playmat, which is great, plus an expansion that's actually worth it. Corinn, any other thoughts on this one?
It seems really cool. Yeah, I'm glad that they've redeemed themselves a little bit with this expansion.
A little bit for sure. It makes me excited to play in, actually. So I'll probably pull them out. It's pretty cool. I like this expansion. It's fun.
Yeah.
That brings me to my question, not just for you, but for the audience as well. It's actually going to feed us into our next game that Corinn's going to talk about. Is what is your favorite small expansion? I'm curious to know what you think. What small, tiny expansion? In this case, the size of the expansion is not very small, but the gameplay and the rules overhead is so small. It's literally like a small little pamphlet of rules, and it's you already know how to play. You put your character there, you put the card on the top, put your card on the bottom, you get it back. So easy to implement. So I'm curious as to what are your favorite small expansions. It could be a physical, just the small size of it, or the rules overhead. I'm curious to hear what you in the comments have to think. And Corinn, what's your favorite small expansion?
So currently, because I was just introduced to this expansion, I haven't played it yet, is the expansion for Parks, Parks Wildlife. So those who are familiar with Parks, I won't go into it too much, but it basically adds, first off, it adds, I think it's 16 more parks to visit, which includes, of course, new artwork, which is always super exciting. It also adds, I think there are three or five different visiting or like what I can't think of the word, like the arrow tiles that allow you to go where your hikers can go and give you certain actions abilities. And there's a new element to the gameplay because these are all just additions to the original gameplay. So there's just more parks to visit. There's more photographs you can take. There's more actions that you can do. They also give you a little buffalo meeple, and you put it at the top of your parks. And the 3 parks that you have displayed, usually people can reserve them or visit them. And with the buffalo, you place that buffalo on top of the, I guess, the leftmost first. And that indicates that no one can reserve that park. You can only visit that park, which limits the, I guess, the ability of people to reserve and like not allow as many people to go for that specific park. Once that park has been visited, though, by a specific player, you move that buffalo to the next park over, which would be the center one. And then again, that park is now off limits to be reserved. You have to go visit it. So it just adds a little bit more of a challenge to the gameplay. And again, just not for it to be so easy to be like, oh, I'm just going to reserve this park because I need it. So you can't do that. So I thought that added just a little bit more of a challenge to the pretty simplistic gameplay that we already have with park. So I really enjoyed that. Plus the beautiful artwork that they added some more. I think they also added some more season cards as well. Just again, abilities that you can do specifically for each round that you are going through in parks. But yeah, it was super awesome. Oh yeah, some of these parks, that's right. They you get immediate benefits for visiting those parks. So if you pay for those parks, you get you see that little dark column that indicates the immediate effects, which is usually a wildlife meeple, which is a wild, or you get a free water canteen. So yeah, there's just like little elements. I think it added just enough to make parks that much more interesting and a little bit more variety in your gameplay.
I really like expansions like this, the more expansions where a lot of the gameplay is intuitive.
Yeah.
It's the symbols you already know. It's nothing that's going to
Mhm.
be overcomplicated. But I also like the fact that it adds just a small token to the game. In your games with the Buffalo Meeple, how did they play out? Did you find yourself using it a lot? Was it something that you were like, "Ooh, yes, I get to use it"? How did it feel?
That is a good question. For sure, the what is it? Those arrow, whatever, I can't, rhombus shaped, I don't know,
The
pieces.
trail. Mhm.
Yeah, the trail. Thank you, trail. The trail was definitely, I like some of those really added benefits to again making your choice of like where you go on the trail. I felt like the buffalo. I don't want to say he was the most inconsequential piece to the game. I think it did help. I honestly, when we played Parks, I did not do very well. My sister was killing it, but I did like that it did limit us reserving the parks that I wanted, even though I still didn't get the parks I wanted. But I think the buffalo maybe is the not the weakest point. I don't think that's the right term, but yeah, like just of the gameplay change.
I
I
gotcha.
You
Well,
know what
I
I'm
think
saying?
I think you said it well, most inconsequential maybe. Like,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
really affect the game that much. Oh, that's kind of
Yeah.
unfortunate.
Not at least in this specific game that we played,
Okay,
we
okay.
only played with this once, so I don't have enough. I don't want people to be like, "It changed my whole, like, entire gameplay." I don't know, the one that it did for me was inconsequential, but it could have been also I was not playing well. Because it had been a while since we had played Parks, but all of the other things like the canteen or the different canteen ones or the different trail things or the season cards, I think all of those added just another element to the game, which I think was
The
really
way
good.
that you describe this, it makes me really excited to actually play Parks again. One of the things that I had an
Yeah.
issue with on Parks was the tiles. It was pretty obvious what choices to make on your turn.
Mhm.
Like, you knew which, okay, this is clearly the best choice. I'll do this, do this,
Mhm.
do this. These new trails seem really fascinating, and maybe that will change my opinions and how I interact with this.
Yes.
For example, you can trade one token for four resources. You can
Mhm.
you get a filled canteen, something like that.
Yes, you can fill one of your canteens for free, I think
Hmm.
that is what that one did, and then the one in the middle of those 2 is you, everyone gets a sun except you, I think. You might also get a sun, so you land on that one, I think all your neighbors get a sun, but you can use a empty trail piece, which
Ah.
is very cool. So it's kind of like a debate of like, do I
Hmm.
wanna give everyone a sun, but I also get like a free empty trail thing so I don't have to visit there like if you had passed it already. So, yeah.
I'm excited. Awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
good. I'm glad you're able to highlight this here. We do have Parks Wildlife in the side game library. It's mainly here because a lot of other people really enjoy it. It's one of those games that's like, whatever, I'd call it if I had the option, but it's pretty. People like to play
It
it.
is very
So
pretty.
that's why it stays. It gets played by people. So unfortunately, but hopefully this is awesome. Like I hope that this reinvigorates my excitement to play Parks.
Well, good.
Anything else to add on Parks Wildlife?
I was gonna say it's very pretty. It's very. I think it, just like you said, it's a good expansion that just adds on to the initial gameplay. Like it's very intuitive, so it's not a hard one to pick up.
All right. So that is Parks Wildlife, the most recent expansion for Parks. And we have a couple of comments here from, oh, it looks like spam. Wonderful. I'll make
Yeah.
sure to block the user.
Is
All
it
right.
like donate money?
It's perfect match.
Oh,
Ooh. So
perfect match to
risque.
a game.
Well, hopefully with my next option, it might be. So my next option here is my next game that I've been playing. The last game we'll talk about heavily on this list is one that I just want to mention briefly. This is one that I've been excited for quite a while, and I was really quite impressed with the production of the entire thing upon arrival. It came in a gigantic crate. I wasn't really sure what to expect, honestly. It's
Yeah.
an indie publisher.
Mhm.
And they have created a game called S.H.E.O.L. So S.H.E.O.L here it stands for, ooh, I'm gonna butcher this. I'm not gonna say it because I don't remember what it is, but
Oh no!
it's an acronym for something. And
Obviously.
the premise of the game is you are characters who are using light to combat the darkness. So a giant, terrible dark cloud has come onto the earth, and all that's left of humanity is a single city. And the city has started using this Lux resource in order to push back the darkness and also expand and send characters out of this citadel in order to explore the area around as well as mine it for different resources and then combat those evil characters that are going to be assaulting the citadel. Now, what this translates to in gameplay is it is a adventure game, but also like it kind of reminds me of like a tower defense game. It is such
Okay.
a strange experience. I'll be honest with you. But the thing that I wanted to highlight about this game in particular is
Ooh.
how good the tutorial system for this game is. So the way it works is you are going to have a mission deck, and this mission is going to have you doing a variety of objectives. And the objectives are very straightforward and laid out. Go do this thing. When completed, go to the next card. And the tutorial on mission 1 has you starting the game immediately and not needing to know all the rules. Love this. I think it's a great way to tackle a gigantic game like this. And as the missions progress, it's going to add even more and more parts of the game. And so S.H.E.O.L in particular had I skipped out a majority of the evil villains. So there's a bunch of terrible creatures. As you can see here, there's these giant boss miniatures. When you're playing the tutorial, you don't even start the game with any bad characters on the map. So you're just focusing on learning how your characters move, how you're able to place these light path tiles on the board. And as you can see here, they kind of almost like the Tron cycles. They're going to be moving out from the citadels, and you're going to be connecting them to different areas where you'll explore. And once you're on those tiles, then you're going to be building stuff. So the tutorial had the missions be find this thing, place this tile, build something on this tile, and then it starts moving forward and introducing those other enemy mechanisms. I thought this was really smart the way that it did it. So this is just a very early impressions of this game. I think the tutorial is really well done, but I'm not going to speak to the rest of the game because honestly, I haven't played the entire game. I haven't interacted with like 3/4 of the minions that are in the game. I have only used one of the characters, so I really don't have the authority right now to talk about the different characters in the game, but I really like the aesthetic of the game. You've got these characters that are imbued with light that are taking on the darkness. It has something like a Vagrant song where your characters, if they take enough damage, they become corrupted versions of themselves. It's super fun. You're able to develop your citadel. That's your home base from mission to mission. You'll spend the resources that you've accumulated during that time. And then you'll also be able to, if you're playing in the solo capacity, which is how I was learning it, you'll have these little bots that you're going to run around the map as well. And they will have things that you can upgrade in addition to your own personal character. So I think there's a lot of interesting things, a lot of things to love about this game in general. And I'm excited to play more. First impressions, very excited to play more.
Yeah.
It looks very cool. Have you heard anything about this game? Is this one that you would be interested to play?
No, that looks awesome. Like I love the kind of like video game way of teaching you how to play the game of like very simple missions. Press A to do this. It's like go here, extend your light path, whatever. So I think that's really cool. The miniatures look awesome. level legacy like adventure campaign game. So it looks very cool. I am guessing that it means strategic homeland enforcement of light.
Sure. We'll go with that. That's fine. Perfect. Yes, you got it. You won the prize.
Yeah, just thinking about S.H.E.O.L, you know, which I can't even remember their whole acronym.
Oh,
I just
nice.
know
Okay.
strategic homeland. Yeah,
Who knows?
IELD. Yeah. So
That's hilarious. Now, this did, unfortunately, though, bring me to my last question for our viewers. And this has to do with the rule book of the game. So, as I was playing this game and looking at the tutorial, it was so well laid out. But then I got to something specific in the interactions with the game was I took damage from something. And I looked all throughout the rule book. It's like, okay, take damage. I imagine that means something. I don't have health
mhm.
points. So I was looking for like, do I have hit points? Do they damage my weapons? Like what happens? The rulebook says nothing about your health. It doesn't explain what happens when you take damage at all in the entire rulebook. And that's a huge oversight. The rulebook
Yeah.
is written so well. They did such a good job with everything, but they forgot to put a very vital piece in there that you need when you take damage, you lose a lux. That's what it is. So it's like your energy
Okay.
points essentially. It's your light.
Sure.
So they're sapping the darkness saps your light away. Makes sense, but it's not in the rulebook. I checked the BGG forums though, and the creators and the rulebook editors also said, "Oh snap, we totally forgot this in our
Oh
rulebook.
man.
And it's a really big deal because it's a huge part of the game taking damage, the thing that's pushing you forward. But it's your lux, your energy that you're using to take your actions." And that brings us to our question: Is what's something that a game has left out that was so important that wasn't in the rulebook? Have you encountered something like this? Have you played a game and been like, it doesn't say this anywhere? How could they miss this? I'm curious to hear if you have a response to this, Corinn. And if you're watching live, I'd love to hear if you have a response as well. Or afterwards, you can leave it in the comments. I'm curious on what rulebook blunders you've experienced.
Man, I can't think of a specific rule book blunder. I just think of like those specific situations where you're like, well, is this like a loophole to get out of this rule because it doesn't explicitly say that you can like do this? No, I mean, that's so hard, especially when you know it's like coming from like a Kickstarter. Like people are like developing this game and like really working hard to like create and make a really well done product. Just like it seems like it is. Like it's a very well done product, but it's just those little hiccups, you know, of something just kind of important of like what happens when you get damage. So no, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but
It made me think back to games with like bad rule books where it's just like
sure.
impossible to find things, and
Yes.
it might as well not be in the rule book.
Right.
One that's very notorious for this is Batman Gotham City Chronicles.
Right.
Very bad rule book, absolutely terrible, very hard to understand
Mhm.
what's going on in a lot of the cases. It has been rewritten, thank goodness, but
That's good.
in the original version of it, it was pretty brutal to get through that entire thing. But in Sheol, it is clearly just not in there, and I thought that
Yeah.
was it was a little frustrating because I was sitting there like because I was scouring the entire rulebook, and at that point I'd pretty much gone through the whole thing because, as mentioned before, the tutorial is very good with kind of hand holding you through the bits
Yeah.
and pieces that you need to read through. But just totally missed it. And if you are playing Sheol right now, whenever you take damage, it reduces your lux. Awesome. And that's it. Those are the games that we've been playing. So, Corinne, why don't you go through that entire list?
Yes.
What are all the games that you've been playing, and how many unique titles these last 2 weeks?
11 games,
Ooh, awesome. Okay.
and then, I will read them out to you, and then I'll say my favorite and, like, my least favorite kind of
Sounds good.
experiences. Okay.
Perfect.
So, the games are Parks, the Lost Ruins of Arnak. I just wrote Arnak, so I can't remember the name. Sagrada, Kemet, Blood and Sand, Dune Imperium, Azul, Azul Stained Glass of Syndra, Skyjo, Cubitos, Seven Wonders, and Atlantis Rising.
Ooh. Oh, I really like Atlantis Rising. Did you play the second edition?
No, no, I think it was still the first, as far as I
Oh,
know.
okay.
Um, um, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it is the second edition. I'm not sure.
Was it really pretty?
It was very pretty,
Probably
so it's
second
probably the
edition.
second edition. Yeah. So yeah, my favorite interactions of that, or favorite experiences, was probably um Atlantis Rising, Comet, and Parks. Again, just Atlantis Rising was great because we hadn't played in a really long time. fun, collaborative. We almost did not win. We had all of the tiles flooded. We were on the last ones. We got that's a stinking card that basically said you could not gain any mystic points, or no, you couldn't build a component. And we were like, we're one away. So, but luckily we were able to live.
How did you win? Oh, those cards are terrible.
Yeah, I think we had enough. I think that was what it was, where the card came, but we all had enough like magical essence or whatever to like put the barriers up so that when we did flip those cards, it took the barrier and not the extra land so that it didn't get to the middle. I believe that is what happened, but good gracious, because we had all of all the stuff, but we couldn't make it. It was so stressful. Kemet was great because that was the first time playing that, and it was a really cool game. And then Parks because we played the new expansion Wildlife, which was awesome. My least favorite was probably SideGame, just because that's a like card game. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but you're just randomly, you have like a set of 16 cards in front of you, and you're kind of just randomly flipping and hoping to either match a column together so that you can eliminate that row. It's getting the least points amount possible, and it's like negative. As you see, you can get -2 points all the way to 12, and then it's just the luck of the draw, and then trying to align your row or align your column, or just have the least amount of points possible. Did not win that. My sister-in-law, who was also simultaneously taking care of her baby, destroyed us. So that was awesome. Awesome for her, not great for us. But it's a fine game. It's a fine card game. Was it anything spectacular? No. Was it a bad time? No. It's just the lowest on the experiences.
Gotcha. I've never heard of that one. SideGame.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I hadn't heard of it either till we started playing it with my family. Family-in-law.
Anything else you want to comment on before we move on?
I don't think so.
Okay. We'll open it up to some comments really quick. We have John Franklin in the comments here. Good to have you, John. Loves the game because of the national park theme, talking about parks. Looking forward to the expansion. Me too. So anything to make that game better, I'll take it. Next one here, we have... I can't think of any things lately. These have to do with the rules being omitted from rules. However, it used to be a very common with older games. Oftentimes, errata would be published. It's now very common for the better games to try and reduce. True. They do still do erratas in some of the newer games. I remember recently I was playing Messina 1347, the one about the Black Plague. And when it was printed initially, there was an error in the rulebook, and they just released a sticker, and the sticker just went right in the rulebook. So they caught it right before it, and they included them with all the different packages. It was awesome. Nice. And then the second printing, they fixed it up. And complicated rulebooks would often make or break a game now. Absolutely. Some people won't even start working on a game if they can't understand the rules. It makes sense, right? Like, why would you play this thing that it's clearly not ready to go? Right. It's a little bit frustrating. Yeah, unfortunately, that happens a lot with bad rulebooks, as the game is just automatically panned. It's kind of sad. Yeah. There's some good games under there, but at some points, it's just not worth it. Have you ran into that bad rulebooks recently?
Bad rulebooks. Oh, I'm really trying to think, because I feel like my husband and I did talk about this, but I cannot think of the game. So yes, what it was, I don't remember. So
if you think about it, bring it back up and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So I'll go ahead and quickly run through my list of games. I have 28 unique titles. I'll be honest, a lot of my gaming these last 2 weeks has been playing Marvel Champions. The new X-Men stuff has come out, and I've been playing a lot of that. So my numbers are a little bit down, more than normal.
I know. I'm only like 17 behind you rather than like 25.
Lots of big campaign games in this one, though. So we'll start. Etherfields, Twilight Inscription, War Chest, Battlecrest, T for Two, Super Fantasy Brawl, Team 3, Final Girl, A Feast for Odin, Puerto Rico, Ninjato, Marvel Champions, Batman Gotham City Chronicles, Project Elite, Assassin's Creed, Brotherhood of Venice, Cthulhu, Death May Die, Vindication, Tapestry, Ganshan Clever, Hallertau, Oathsworn, Into the Deepwood, Detective, Everybody Lies, that's the Batman, Clash of Decks, Mosaic, A Story of Civilization, John Company, S.H.E.O.L, Unmatched, Ascension Tactics, the deck building miniatures game. From all those, my top three, Marvel Champions X-Men has been awesome. I've been having so much fun playing that. It's been so fun. Cyclops actually is becoming one of my favorites from the new X-Men. I
Oh.
was a little apprehensive with him at first, but I love just grabbing a bunch of random X-Men people, putting them in the deck, and then pairing them up with an aspect and just seeing how it works. And it's just so much fun because you've these new cards that you're just playing with and pairing them with the older cards and seeing how it all interacts. For like a power level, there's definitely some bust stuff you can do. There's a lot of new X-Men cards in general that are just make for some ridiculous plays. Phoenix is also a lot of fun with the Dark Phoenix mode and pushing into her terrible abilities. You have some of the definitely not as strong but super fun characters in the form of Colossus. He's got his organic steel skin and these tough statuses that he pulls up. It's so cool. And then lastly, Shadowcat is a very powerful character, which makes sense because she's also just a very strong ability. So it's been really neat to go through and just play these different combinations, play the older characters with some of the new cards against some of the new villains. It's awesome. I'm having a great time with this.
That's awesome.
That's one of my top three. Batman Gotham City Chronicles, actually. I had a really good game of that. That's one that has that terrible rulebook, but played it with my friends Kyle and Priscilla, and we played a 4-player game, and it was so much fun. We played the Court of Owls scenario. We had these terrible talons that were going in and ruining everything. They had to defuse some bombs and hack into a computer before time ran out. It was a great time. I had a really good time with it, and everybody at the table seemed to as well. Great experience, Batman Gotham City Chronicles. And lastly, another Batman game, Batman Everybody Lies, was so much fun. I had a great time playing. I really like the detective games, and I think they did a great job with this one, particularly with the theming. So I'm in a Batman mood right now. It's good stuff. Oh, yeah. Bottom three, any thoughts on those games before moving on?
Batman for the win.
Batman for the win. Oh, yes. Batman. October could be my Batman month. I'll take it.
There
I
you
had
go.
one of those already. March, or when was it? April. Whenever the Batman came out, that was also Batman month. Some good Batman content this year. We got Batman, the Dark Knight Returns, the board game, amazing solo game, and then the Everybody Lies, awesome cooperative game.
Did it come out in March? I don't even remember.
I think so.
Yeah.
Definitely a 2022 movie. Bottom three, unfortunately, actually, Oathsworn Into the Deepwood was actually one of my negative experiences because that's one of an awesome game from this year. I had a really frustrating experience with it. If you don't want to hear any, I'm not going to say any specific spoilers, but there's a mission in the game where it becomes super fiddly, and I just didn't like it at all. It was a pretty negative experience, actually, because I had come back into it. I was ready. I was excited, and it really fell flat. Not something I enjoyed at all. And then the combat that happened after like the story portion was super weak, probably the weakest story portion I've ever played. The app didn't work really well with it either. It was a little confusing at times. Terrible experience, unfortunately. And then the combat after it was also very weak. So pretty unfortunate that was one of my negative experiences. Also, getting really annoyed with the miniatures in Oathsworn. The way it works is you can customize them as you see fit. They have pieces that come out, and so I'll be playing with them, and I'll like move the piece, and then like its body will just completely go apart. I'm like, God, it's so frustrating. Yeah. So that was one of my bottom experiences. Second worst, that was third worst. Second worst was Battlecrest. It's a PvP game where you have a skirmish style. You have one character fighting another character. It's all in a set of 18 cards. It stopped feeling like that battle game, though. It became more of a puzzle game, and I think that's not really what I was expecting from the game. Not a lot of no randomness, actually, no randomness at all during the game, which made it very analytical and long-term strategy, which is not something I find super compelling in a skirmish game. There's no risk, really. You just have this is what you need to do it, and you can figure it out.
Doesn't seem really to fit the idea of a battle.
Exactly. So a little frustrating on there. Luckily, I got to play Super Fantasy Brawl and Ascension Tactics and Unmatched, so it's no big deal. And then the bottom most experience, though, was one that I was really frustrated with. This was a game that I was so excited for. This is John Company. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this game. This is from Kyle Farron, not Kyle Farron. This is from Cole Worley, who does PAX Premier Second Edition. He does Root. The new Arcs game. Great designer. I really like Oath. Almost all of his games I really enjoy. This game, though, I played the solo mode so that I could learn it, and it was not very fun. Did not like the solo mode at all. I think it's going to change drastically with the multiplayer game. It essentially has you playing as a part of the East India Trading Company. Awesome theme. Like the theme is so cool. Everybody
really
is
cool.
trying to do the best they can in this single company.
Mhm.
And the way it works is each of the players at the table is going to be occupying a specific office in the game. And the offices all have actions that they're going to do that affect different parts of the game. And so if you're able to control one of these parts of the company, it can
Mhm.
influence another phase. And so it's a negotiation game at its heart,
Cool.
where if you do something for one player, they may be able to do something for you when it's their turn to enact whatever office they hold. So the game design itself is incredible. This is
Mhm.
like nothing I've ever played. It's absolutely amazing. You are controlling this company and you're trying to eke out victory points as in very small increments. But the solo mode for this game is honestly you just playing the AI for the majority of the game. The way it
Mm.
works is at the beginning of each turn, you have the possibility of potentially retiring your people that work for you. And if you're playing solo, the game itself has the solo mode starts with double the amount of cards that you do. So they
Okay.
start with pretty much all like 2 times as much characters in offices, which means they're taking more actions. And then that first portion of the game, if you
Mhm.
get people that get kicked out, that get retired, essentially, yes, it's going to get you points and cards, but you're also not taking like any of the major actions in the game, which
Right.
means the solo mode has you managing what the AI is doing for every single phase, and it's super tedious and not
Yeah.
fun. You are playing maybe 5% of the game at that point and
Mm.
doing just maintenance for the rest. Not a good experience. It does try to alleviate this by giving you this way that you can negotiate through the use of these red cubes, and the red cubes can interrupt the actions.
Okay.
And I think it's a cool idea in theory, but I think in practice it's a little bit more frustrating because in addition to having to run the AI, you can't really get familiar with the AI because there's so many different options, and so you have to refer to this crown book, and the crown book will have steps that you have to follow each time because you can pay cubes at specific moments in the AI's turns to
Mm.
modify or change the action. And it was frankly just not fun at
Mm.
all. I felt like I was just going through the motions, making decisions,
Right.
not not really making any decisions, which was really frustrating. I was just
Yeah.
watching the gameplay itself,
Yeah.
and that's not what I want in a solo game. I want a
Yeah.
game where I'm actually able to play.
Yeah.
It's super frustrating. So I learned the
Mm.
game. I can teach it now, which is great. So hopefully the multiplayer is good. But
Yeah.
on the solo mode, super frustrating. Have you
Mm.
experienced a game like that? I know you're not a big solo gamer, but
No, no. No. I mean, it looks super cool. I'm sorry that it's like, but just like experiencing that, it's like I don't want to be told how to do it. I want to do it. Like I want to figure it out myself, you know? Like that's how you want to be helped, but you want to have like you were saying, like you want to be able to make decisions and you couldn't do that. So that's a bummer.
the game is so robust, and I do think it's going to be awesome when I
Yeah.
actually am able to play it with others. The
Yeah.
fact that you have these offices that everybody runs, and if you
Right.
control an office, you're the person who does the action for that phase. And that
Right.
sounds really interesting when people are able to just make that decision. They're thinking about
Mhm.
it when they're not playing. You're able to actually negotiate more than just based on the cubes that you have. And so you are actually able to make big decisions and see
Yeah,
them play out and be constantly thinking about what you're going to do. I think that sounds way more interesting than the solo mode of
for sure.
just looking at a checklist. So I
Yeah,
hope
yeah, yeah.
there is good multiplayer. Yeah.
That's cool.
I hope it's great. So that's where I'm at with John Company Second Edition.
Mhm.
I hope it's good. I really do. But
I
that's
mean, it
it.
looks really cool. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Oh, the whole aesthetic is great. It looks like that Pax
Yeah.
Pamir second edition redesign. It looks so smooth. So just hoping for the best on this one. But that's it. Those are all the games that we've played. If you want to comment below all the games that you've been playing, any games that you heard us talk about that you're excited about, anything from our list that you want to hear more about, please let us know down in the comments below. I'm super curious to hear what you've been playing. Corinne,
Yes.
anything else to add before we close off today?
I was just gonna say, also let us know what games you guys are excited about. It is almost the end of 2022, but that means things for 2023 are gonna come out. So please let us know what you guys are excited for down below.
Absolutely. Corinne, did you see any of the coverage for S.H.E.O.L or any of the games that have been coming out?
Mm-mm.
So if you have time, we did some coverage on our channel on potential
Oh,
S releases that we were excited for.
okay.
It just finished last week, so a lot of those new games are now in people's hands, getting played and getting
Sweet.
reviewed. So we've got some stuff that we can look forward to and some reviews that we can watch to inform our purchasing decisions in the near future.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I'm going to give a
Definitely.
last shout out to Corinn here. Please make sure that you go check out SuperBlondeNerd over on YouTube. I'll leave a link in the description below. It should actually already be there, but Corinn puts out a variety of videos. One of her most recent ones here I really enjoyed. They say spooky, scary board games. So go check that one out. She's got some great editing skills, far superior to what that I do in this channel. So you can tell that she does a great job here. I really like the way you edit your videos.
Thank
Also,
you.
some great ghost artwork, another highlight. Go check out Corinn's channel. Anything that you're excited that you're releasing soon?
Yeah, so I will definitely be releasing at least 2 more videos for this month. Hopefully by this weekend, I will be releasing a spooky story time where I'm actually reading kind of basically like audible reading a short story and having artwork that goes with that. And then soon, I don't know if I'm hoping to release it by Halloween, but my Halloween costume, the process, the everything, it's still a work process. It's actually right here on the floor, right next to me. But yeah, I'm super excited for that as well. So just stay tuned for more stuff.
Awesome. So excited to see what you have in store for us, Corinn. Any other games that you're excited to play, things that have just came in?
I mean, more Seven Wonders for sure, and Seven Wonders leaders. No, I mean, hopefully some just more spooky board games for the Halloween times.
Oh yeah, we've got a big game of Clock Tower coming up next week. We just got some new
Yes.
stuff in. You spoke about Sagrada earlier. We got the Glory expansion in, so hopefully that's a good one. We have
Ooh.
Christmas time coming up. We do have the Exit Advent calendar
So
that we'll get a chance to
cool.
play. Some
So
new
exciting.
solo gaming. We got the Vengeance Roll and Fight. So if it's great, I'll go and pick up that second one. And then one that I'm very excited for, one of my favorite designers here. This is from Mr. Alexander Pfister. We work with Mombasa. This is Sky Mines. So he makes one of my favorite board games, Maracaibo. So hopefully this one holds up as a revision of one of his older games.
Cool.
So I'm excited. There's a lot of good stuff. We have Endless Winter that's delivering very soon. We've got the shipping notification. ISS Vanguard should be here at some point. Have not received the shipping notification for that, as well as the Everdell Big Box collection should hopefully be here sometime soon. So have not heard the whereabouts of that one yet as well. So maybe we'll have to reach, but they said they're still in the process of delivering things. So hopefully we get our copy soon.
Super excited.
So that is what we've been playing. And thank you so much for joining us live here. And if you're joining us afterwards, thank you so much for watching. And please let us know down in the comments games that you've been playing, games that you're excited to play, and what you think about the games we talked about here. Corinn, anything else?
SideGame Strong.
SideGame Strong, y'all. Adios.